The Paintress has wiped out dozens of generations, and now it's your turn to sail to the continent and take the fight to the Nevrons. My name is Codiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and today we're sharing everything we wish we knew sooner about Sandfall Interactive single-player RPG, Expedition 33. Expedition 33 is now available, and I'll just come out and say it. This is one of our favorite games of all time. There's a lot of basics you need to learn, and fast, which is why we've already released our Ultimate Beginner's Guide, which you can check out now. In that video, we cover the basics, the things you need to know to survive, but in this Wish I Knew Sooner tips and tricks video, we're going to dive into some of the more nuanced systems and secrets we've discovered in our combined 100 plus hours with the game. While there won't be any story spoilers in this video, we will talk about mechanics that are unlocked throughout the game. If you want to go in completely blind, we understand. When it comes to your character's build in Expedition 33, nothing is more important than Pictos and Lumina, two parallel systems of passive upgrades that massively increase your chance of survival during your expedition. Pictos are lootable items that you'll sometimes obtain after defeating enemies or by exploring side paths within a zone, often recognized by their teal-colored appearance as lootable items. Pictos are physical items that must be equipped on a character in order for them to gain the passive effect. But one thing you might not realize about Pictos is that they also provide stat boosts. At the start of the game, that might not seem like much, but towards the end of the game, when you're trying to squeeze every drop of damage or survivability out of your characters, those passive buffs plus stat boosts are huge. Pictos are unique and can only be socketed on one character at a time. But once that Picto has been used in combat 4 separate times, it becomes a Lumina. Lumina provide the same passive buff as the Picto, however, you no longer get the stat boost when it's active. That's because Lumina are not physical items and are instead activated or deactivated as part of a Lumina pool. Each Lumina has a point value, and depending on how many Lumina points your character has, will determine how many Lumina they can have active. Each character's total Lumina points increase each time they level up, but you can also upgrade your Lumina points at the Curator back at camp. By using Color of Lumina items, you can increase your Lumina points by 1 per item. Now here's the kicker, these items are not infinite, and while you'll get dozens as you play the game, you do have to be strategic about how you allocate them across your characters. My advice would be to try and make do without spending Color of Lumina as long as possible, but if you run into a boss or area of the game you're struggling with, don't hesitate to increase your Lumina points so you can have access to more buffs. You can become obsessed with managing your Lumina, but don't forget about those 3 Picto slots either. As you reach the late game, a good strategy is to use the best Picto for each character that's also the highest level. This guarantees you get the passive buff, the stat boost associated with the Picto, and prevents you from having to spend the higher Lumina cost to activate the effect. Sometimes the stats are the more important part of the Picto and the buff's secondary, and that's okay too. There are a number of Lumina that all have the same effect, but some cost more Lumina points to activate. In this case, it's best to slot the highest level Picto and activate the lower level ones using Lumina. This compounds the benefit while also effectively using your resources. When all else fails, reset both your Pictos and your Lumina on a character and start from scratch. With a fresh slate, it's easier to build back up piece by piece and get the biggest bang for your buck. If you've played a JRPG before, then you'll be familiar with the importance of items, but in Expedition 33, items aren't gimmicky consumables, but another layer in an otherwise intricate combat puzzle, and sometimes the key to your success over a powerful enemy is leveraging items the right way. There are 3 items that you'll have access to from the start of the game. First are healing tints, which restore some HP on one character. Second are energy tints, which restore some AP on one character. Finally, there's the revive tint, which, as the name suggests, allows you to revive a downed party member. Items should be considered just as important as skills, and in some cases, it's best to use items above all else. Let me give you an example. When playing Monoco, I opted to have a number of 4 and 5 AP cost skills, mainly because they fit the overall playstyle of my 3 expeditioners together. The only downside is that there would be times when I'd only have 1 or 2 AP to spend. In that scenario, my only options would be to use basic attack and gain 1 AP, use free aim and use that AP, or use an item, in this case an energy tin, not dealing any immediate damage, but gaining multiple points of AP. Using the item is a clear best choice in this scenario because the attack that I'll use on the following turn will more than make up for the paltry damage my basic attack would have done. On the flip side, if you know you're going to need to use a healing or revive tint and you're maxed out on AP, it's not a bad idea to take a couple shots with free aim before using the item, which ends your turn. If you have Pictos that enhance your shot, this might even give you a free mark or burn, but if nothing else, it's damage. Items become even more valuable once you find Pictos that provide additional benefits whenever you use an item. These can play an important part in your overall build strategy, especially if you know what items you have a tendency to use. Throughout your adventure, you'll want to explore as many optional side paths as you can stomach because that's where you'll find tint shards, which increase the number of times you can use an item before it's exhausted. You'll also occasionally find shape items, such as Shape of Health, and these increase the item's potency. The only catch here is that while tints automatically upgrade your items, shapes don't, for whatever reason. To increase the potency of an item, you need to have the shape item and then upgrade your expedition resources at the curator back at camp. I'll admit, I forgot to do this more than once because there's often a gap between when you get the shape item and when you return to a camp, so leave yourself a reminder to always check back in with the curator. You can't have an RPG without loot goblins, and in the case of Expedition 33, there are Paytonks. These are small golden Nevron that you'll find scattered throughout the continent, and whenever you do come across one, you should consider yourself lucky because, if defeated, they'll reward you with a handful of powerful loot used to upgrade weapons and re-roll your character's attributes or skills. Paytonks are tricky, and if you approach them, they'll run away. The key to actually engaging one is chasing it to its runic platform located somewhere in the nearby area. Once it's on the rune, it won't run away. Think of yourself as a sheepdog and the Paytonk as the sheep. It's going to move in the opposite direction that you're approaching it from. In almost every instance, there are multiple pathways the Paytonk can run, and sometimes that'll lead you in circles until you eventually realize you have to push the Nevron towards the runic platform. When you do eventually get the Paytonk to settle, don't simply run into it. Make sure you use your first strike ability on the right bumper because that's going to guarantee you get the first attack in the sequence. Paytonks will run away after 3 turns, so it's important to maximize every ounce of damage, but here's the thing. Every Paytonk has different mechanics. Some of them you can attack and kill like you would any other enemy. Some of them summon minions and shield themselves. Others still don't take traditional damage at all, and instead, you need to shoot their weak spot, which floats around. Identifying the unique mechanics associated with each Paytonk is the key to defeating them because your time is limited. Paytonks will attack you, and you should always try and parry these to activate a counterattack. Nothing they do will outright kill you, so the usual fear of losing an expeditioner shouldn't be a factor. The goal is damage, not survivability. One way you can extend the life of the battle is by filling up the Paytonk's break bar and then using a break ability. In fact, I'd argue that it's essential to go into most Paytonk fights with this strategy top of mind. Breaking the enemy will stun them, thus skipping their turn, which buys your team another round. Once you reach the overworld in Expedition 33, you can explore every corner of the continent. Roaming enemies and randomly scattered loot is great, but also hidden throughout the overworld are 9 Lost Gestrals, charming creatures you'll come to love as you play through the game. Whenever you find a Lost Gestral, they'll return to your camp in a small clearing under the protection of a much larger Gestral. Return to him after you've collected 4 Gestrals, and he'll reward you with a new non-combat ability, Paint Break. This allows you to destroy large paint obstacles that often obstruct hidden items and secret passageways. You should try and unlock this as early as you can in your adventure, because these obstacles start appearing as early as the second main zone, and if you unlock this ability later in the game, you will have to retrace your steps, which isn't impossible, but it's certainly a pain. You can find 4 Lost Gestrals at the following locations. The first Lost Gestral can be found on the way to Esquia's Nest, right along the pathway. The second Lost Gestral can be found past the Burgeon to the northeast of Stonewave Cliffs. The third Lost Gestral can be found just southwest of the White Tree Point of Interest, which is part of the small island located here. The fourth Lost Gestral can be found southeast of Monoco Station, right before you enter the snowy region. Expedition 33 is an incredibly story-driven game, with each character playing an important part in the overall storytelling. After every major story beat, you'll end up back at camp, and if you blow through this section of the game too quickly, you will miss a huge opportunity. Whenever you're back at camp, make sure to talk to each member of your expedition. When given the opportunity to spend time with a character, say yes. This will trigger a cutscene and some additional dialogue. If you're a lorehead that wants to learn more about Lumiere, the Paintress, and your expedition's companions, this is a great bit of exposition, but it's also an important part of your progression. See, by engaging in these extra conversations, you can increase your relationship level with each of these companions. You might think this leads down the romance route, but that's not actually the case. When you reach relationship level 4 and then 6, you unlock new gradient attacks for that specific character. Gradient attacks are unlocked during the second half of the game, and they're amongst the most powerful skills in all of Expedition 33, either in terms of overall damage or team utility. Each character starts with a singular gradient attack once the system is unlocked, but they each have 2 additional ones that can be discovered by simply taking the time to talk to them back at camp. One of my favorite characters in Expedition 33 is Monoco, an eccentric Gestral that can transform into enemy Nevrons, unleashing their own skills against them. However, the only way Monoco learns the skills of his enemies is by killing them while part of the active team and, well, collecting their foot. The challenge is Monoco comes around midway through the game, which means you've already fought and defeated hundreds of enemies by this point. My advice here is simple, and it really comes down to what you care about most. If you want an easier time unlocking all of Monoco's awesome skills, then progress through the main quest without getting distracted too often by side content. Once you have the character unlocked, then go off the main path and engage in all of the optional zones and activities your heart desires. This just increases the chance you'll see unique enemies that Monoco can kill and add to his collection. If efficiency isn't your priority and you don't mind backtracking through content you've already cleared just to unlock some Monoco skills, then by all means, ignore the advice. Expedition 33 is a linear game, but that doesn't mean you carve through an area once and then you're done. In fact, one of the best things you can do to prepare yourself for the dangers of future zones is to farm. Killing packs of enemies grants you experience, that's a gimme, but killing packs you've already defeated also has an increased chance of dropping Catalyst, which you can use to upgrade your weapons, as well as recoats, used to reallocate your attributes or skills. There's absolutely no shame in farming areas and gaining an experience edge because there's not a real way to tell how you match up against any given enemy. It's entirely based on feel. Some specific enemies, like chromatic bosses, are designed to be more challenging, often with one-shot mechanics, but they're entirely beatable if you commit to learning their attack sequences and can lock in long enough to defeat them. Doing so will grant you a huge spike of XP that can increase your characters multiple levels at a time, which is massive, especially in the earlier parts of the game. If you want to know how you match up loosely against enemies in any given zone, just look at the portals. Blue portals are way under your level and should be easy, yellow portals are at or slightly above your level, and red portals are way above your level. Also, don't be afraid to take on those enemy packs roaming the overworld. These are strategically placed and almost always reward you with something, be it a weapon, weapon upgrade, Picto, or Picto upgrade. It's a sort of soft catch-up mechanic that helps you keep your gear in line with current content. Mastering Expedition 33's combat comes down to a few things: how well you can build your characters, and how good you are at avoiding enemy damage. The latter is easily the more challenging of the two, but there are ways you can game the system and get a slight edge during each battle. Nevrons, specifically the more challenging ones, have some of the most intricate combat animations I've seen outside of something developed by FromSoft. There are some enemies that attack 4, 5, even 6 times in a sequence, and it's not always predictable. One thing you'll want to do, especially when learning a new fight, is lean into the dodge mechanic. You have a bigger window to mess up, and as you're trying to internalize a new enemy's attack pattern, it is your best option. However, once you get comfortable with even one of an enemy's attacks, don't be afraid to weave in your parry. It's easy to think you must dodge or you must parry every attack, but that's not the case. A single parry within an enemy attack sequence will still result in your character gaining AP, which could ultimately tip the balance of a fight. There are entire encounters where I would dodge almost everything, but there'd be one simple attack, usually a ranged projectile, that I would opt to parry because the timing was easier to figure out. I'm still dodging most of the damage, but when I can take advantage of an enemy, I do so. If you want a sort of barometer for which enemy attacks you've mastered the timing for, just look for the word perfect whenever you dodge. A perfect dodge means it would have also been a successful parry, so if you can string together a full sequence of perfect dodges, it might be time to switch things up and start parrying. It's not the most glamorous way to get the job done, but it's the little things that add up and make a huge impact. So there you have it, everything we wish we knew sooner about Clair Obscure's Expedition 33. Guys, we had an absolute blast playing this game, and we'll have a ton of new videos on the channel, so keep it right here by dropping a like and of course subscribing so you never miss a new video. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching and play on.